Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hope. My name is Tammy Lynn Connors, and this is my YouTube channel and podcast, Helping Other People Evolve. I am super excited today to have Carlos on here with me. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Great. So I'm super excited. I always tell people how I meet people, and I actually met Carlos. It's been, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years ago. We met through our friend Jason. So been following him on social media, and then the other day you made a post about maybe being on podcast or something. Yeah. And Jason was like, you should be on Tammy's podcast. And I was like, that's a great idea. So I'm super excited. You're in Rhode Island, you said, correct?
Yeah. I'm in Rhode Island, and ironically, Rhode Island on its flag has hope on there. So,
Oh, it does?
yeah,
Well, think of that.
look
See?
at that.
So, for those that don't know what hope is and what my mission is, it's just to help people that feel like they're struggling alone. I feel like so many people in this world, and especially since, 2020, we've all been through a lot. And a lot of people are at home and they're sitting on their couch or they're laying in their bed and they just feel like they cannot get up and go through their day because of the struggles they go through. So, what I do is I interview people that have been through struggles, but fortunately have gotten to strengths. It's not every day easy. We never say that, but we like to give you some tools to help you to get through these struggles. And you might hear Carlos' story today and be like, shit, my struggles are nothing compared to what his were, because that's what happens. We take our problems, we throw them in a pile, we go grab ours real quick, right back, because there's so much out there. But it's so great to know that we don't have to be alone. And even if you feel like maybe you can't get through that struggle, and maybe you're sitting at home and somebody's saying something to you and you're like, man, nobody else gets treated like this. That's not true. You're not alone. There's so much out there, and that's why we do Hope. So I'm super excited, Carlos. Like I said before we started here, I really don't know much of your story, so I guess let's start when Carlos was wherever it started, teenager, whatever year you want to bring in. You
Yeah.
just bring it
So,
in.
I guess one of the most difficult times in my life was when I was growing up. I was a teenager in high school. My mom, thankfully, in the beginning stages of my life, was very successful. She had a restaurant, was doing really well, and then eventually we got to a point where, unfortunately, her restaurant got burned down.
Mm.
Uh, she went ahead and had a situation where she did have insurance, of course, and was gonna have the place fixed. But the contractor, took advantage of her. Her lawyer took advantage of her as a woman, and long story short, she, you know, got the short end of the stick. The contractor walked away with the money. She paid him
Mm.
in advance, and the restaurant never got fixed, and she ended up losing it. Um,
Oh.
so this was a very difficult for stage in my life. Um, you know, and it may sound like somebody who is privileged or comes from things, a family of money, but at that time in my life, I didn't really understand particular things and how things worked. And,
Mm-hmm.
my mom losing everything, it became almost like a ripple effect that started, like leading into other things. Things weren't great at home. Next thing you know, like, it's around that age where, my brother and sister had gotten their first car, and,
Yeah.
my mom was fortunate enough to be able to buy them their first car. I unfortunately was not in that line of uh, fortune, I guess you could say. And, I had to work for my first car. I ended up getting a job at 16 and 10 months. My first job was at Best Buy. And when I got my first car and I paid that $2,000, I think it was that I paid for it, it felt good. It
Good.
felt it felt like something that, I earned, you know, and that was mine. And not to say that, people being handed stuff or like being gifted, a car like my older brother and sister were is a bad thing, but it definitely made me who I am today and what has allowed me to become, what I like to think is as good as an entrepreneur as I am.
Mm-hmm.
Because as great as my brother and sister are, they're not here in the trenches, every day,
Right.
figuring out how things work and running their own business. So, it was something that for me, uh, was very difficult. After that, um, my mom, she really did try to, keep things together. And, I was in school, um, and working, and whenever I could, I try to help her out. Um, so, she didn't completely lose everything shortly after that. But she did start, it became like a ripple effect. And, one of the some of the bizarre things just happened. Like you would think it was like stuff out of a movie.
Mm.
Um, like she went ahead and she had another location that she rented out in the meantime, and she had some of her equipment that she was able to salvage from the restaurant, and she put it in there, and she started up another little spot. And it's like there was just either a person or a force that just like was just like constantly trying to put her down.
Mm.
And, when she was first starting in this first restaurant, um, at the other restaurant when that she started after the first one burned down,
Hmm.
um, there was like a situation where um, we had gone in, we were putting stuff in, and like we hadn't even opened. And I kid you not, like like those things from like the movies, the Molotov cocktails, like
Yeah.
somebody threw one of those things through a window and they set the place on fire
Oh
again.
no.
So like this made me think like, okay, maybe the first fire wasn't an accident. Like this
Hmm.
just makes you like super paranoid,
Sure.
and I was afraid somebody was trying to kill my mom, like at
Mm.
this point. And it's like, okay, like what enemies does she have? Like, like what the hell's going on? Like,
Right.
what's my mom into? Like, what's going on? And thankfully, like the fire that caught was there wasn't as bad because the building was made of like brick. So it wasn't like, it only just got through the window and it caused a little fire. But, it really scared her into like not wanting to be here anymore.
Right.
Um, for good reason, of course, too, because, like, what if we had been inside, and
Exactly.
that was something that was a common occurrence. Like I was the one helping her out most of the time
Hmm.
because I had the time to. My older brother and sister had to work and things of that nature. And, for me, it was, in my best interest to try to help her as much as I could. And, that really scared her. And for a time, like she had all the properties here in Rhode Island and things of that nature. But she ended up leaving to New York for a bit and staying with like my aunt. And, just because like she felt like either somebody or something was like really trying to come after her here in Rhode
Right.
Island. And she had, at least from what she told me, she didn't know who it was. We couldn't
Hmm.
figure out who it was, and she didn't think it would be the contractor or something like that because, like he already left with her money. So,
Right.
um,
Jeez.
and when she was in New York, things just ended up getting, more difficult for me at that time. I was almost just getting into college. Um, I was trying to figure out, like how I was even gonna get into college. Me being first generation in this country, I was the first one to go through college the way that I went through. My sister attended college as well, but she went to a community college, and I was going to like URI, which is a university. I had to take my SATs. I had to do this, that, and the third, apply, and it was a process, and it wasn't something that I don't think I would have gotten through unless I had the right people in my life and the right resources to kind of walk me through them. So I ended up getting into this program called College Visions, and that was a blessing. I'm actually a member of the board now, just
Oh,
because it meant so much to me, to help kids like me that you know are first generation college students and don't know how they're gonna even get to college, you know.
right.
So it's something that is near and dear to my heart. And when I was going through that process, they helped me with the application process. They helped me, write my first college essay. When I was on campus, they even sent me like snacks and things of that nature during like exam season and stuff like that. So it was a very great like support system that I wish everybody could really grasp on or hold on to, especially when they're going through things. Having somebody that can help you get through situations is probably one of the
Mhm.
most powerful things in the world, because what I like to say is, you don't have to do it alone.
Right,
And
right.
even if they don't understand what you're going through, just having somebody there to talk to is something that's important.
Yeah,
Um,
can I stop real quick right there?
yeah.
Because I want to talk about that because I just got off the phone with a friend of mine in Canada, and he's a young man. I think he's like 30, Dylan is, and he goes through these things, but we were talking today, and I said, it's okay to call me and just talk. I don't have the answers. I don't know what a 30-year-old young man's going through, but to listen and maybe give a little advice, but also
Yeah.
just to listen. And then you feel better after you listen, and I think that's important for people to know that it's okay just to pick up that heavy phone, the heavy cell phone now. Years ago, it used to be for me a phone with a cord, but
Let's go ahead
pick up that cell phone. I know it weighs 5,000
and
pounds.
dial and dial.
Yep. Yeah. Hand dial. Yeah. You get your fingers all calluses on your fingertip. But, just pick it up and call somebody and just talk to them because just like this here, Carlos, it's just letting somebody know that they're not alone. Your struggle's not alone. And like you said, you might not relate to their exact struggle, but sometimes you can be like, well, this is what I went through and this is how I got through it. And they're like, oh shit, mine's nothing. Here I go again with, I'm sorry, I've cussed twice now. I don't usually do that. But they're like, man, what I'm going through isn't anything to what you've gone through, and so it's just to show them that we can get through those struggles. And I love that you're on the board with them too. I think that's awesome because you knew how much they helped you, so how much that meant to you to help them. I want to ask you another question. Where are you from? What nationality are you?
So my mother's from the Dominican Republic,
Okay.
and so is my father. So
Okay.
I'm second generation American Dominican.
Okay. I was just that's you had mentioned that and I was like, I never asked him that. So
Question.
okay. Now we can continue with the board helping you and all that.
Yeah, so they were able to, the College Visions was able to help me with the application process, thankfully, while my mother was away. Um, it was something that, we had to show like um she wasn't around to like sign a lot of things, so I had to like, figure out ways to get those things resolved. And they really made it something that was more feasible for me, especially during those times. And it ended up getting to a point where she would come back. But like, our relationship started to kind of distance itself, mainly because she was away. And I didn't form any type of resentment or anything like that towards her. But I understood that, like, because she had to be away, that she was trying to do things, um, to support us,
Right.
the family. So she was working over there. She was trying to do what she could to, keep the house and,
Mm,
and make sure that, we had a place to sleep. And um, unfortunately, it even got to the point where like some of the other properties that she ended up losing those too. Um, so she had like some multi-family houses and things of that nature, and things that she had invested in, throughout throughout her time. But like I always remember her, you know, being joyous when we were, for example, having like Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas or something like that, and we'd have all these people all over the house. And it was hurtful for me, but I feel like for her as well,
mhm,
um when like these people wouldn't be around anymore,
mhm,
and it's almost like all these people were around when she was doing well, but now that she was like
mm,
doing poorly, like it's like nobody gives a damn,
mm.
and it's like, where are all these friends that she had, you know
Yes. Yeah.
and it was tough. It taught me a lot of lessons about, like life, and how to react to people, and not to pay contractors, before they finish the work, you know,
Right.
um, and just a lot of things that, could um could end up hurting you in the future, or or along the path that you're going through. Now I'm grateful to say that my mom is in a better position, that I've grown up to be a person who, was able to retire her, and send, she ended up going to Dominican Republic, Um, but like one of the things that even now, and I'm grateful that, I was able to resolve this last time that I went to the Dominican Republic. Um, but she was living in Dominican Republic for a while,
Hmm.
and she, she hadn't been there since she was a kid,
Okay.
so she didn't have many friends there. And she almost got into like, a depressive um episode, like where she wasn't going out, she wasn't talking to anybody. And this hurt me, like I'm somebody who's very empathetic, and who, like, when I see that, people are hurting, it really,
Hmm.
like, it causes me pain. And
Hmm.
I could tell, like, when I was talking on the phone with her, that she just wasn't happy. And my grandma had a particular location over there that she had a store in, and that she was closing down. And I asked my mom, like, what are they gonna do with that? And I'm grateful to say that we were able to turn that into a supermarket. And that my mom, you know in doing the day to day there, has gotten a lot happier. She's meeting people. She's just full of purpose, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Whereas before then, it's almost like she was just sitting at home. And there's nothing wrong with plants. She loves her plants. She loves taking care of them. But, she was just sitting at home with plants. And, I feel like, us as human beings, part of being human is interacting with other people.
Right.
And,
Right.
otherwise you just start to deteriorate,
Mhm.
and feel bad for yourself, and get into situations that aren't good for you.
Right.
Um,
And I would have to say with your mom, like you said, owning the restaurants, she was definitely a people person.
yeah,
Because you can't own restaurants and not be a people person and have your
no,
restaurant
no, no. She
have your
she loves
restaurant do
people.
well.
She loves people, but she was hurt by people.
Right.
And there's some healing, that still needs to be done. Trust issues, of
Hmm.
course, come along with things like that, being betrayed,
Sure.
by people that you thought, were your friends, and
Hmm.
all of that stuff. But, we're working on it, and every day, it isn't over, but it keeps us going.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just talking a little bit about that today too, about like every day is, I hear you say this a few times, grateful, 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 and I think a lot of people forget that word in life,
Mhm.
like
Yeah,
gratefulness. I mean, I have my moments too, and then I'll be like, what are you talking about right now? I mean, I am grateful to take a breath in the morning, but life
exactly.
happens. And that's what I tell people, because people are always like, you're always so happy and you smile all the time. And I am, and I really am. But there are times that my life isn't a rainbow and unicorn day, but I have to take the tools that I've learned. And the first thing I do is think of the things that I'm grateful for. Because I mean, I'm grateful I have a roof over my head. I have a car that I drive. That's enough for me to be grateful for,
That's
you know?
that's true.
And we forget those things, I think, sometimes in life, that we
Yeah.
forget that. And like you said, I love when you say, because you've been able to help your mom and you've been able to do things, but every time you say that, you say, I'm grateful that I was able,
Yeah.
because some people are out here, they're not grateful because they were able. That's kind of what they feel like. That's life. You should get that, right? You're entitled to that
Entitled to
entitlement,
it. Yeah.
and nobody's entitled to anything, we're not. We have to work for the things that we have, but to be grateful that we're able to do that, I think is a big thing that we need to, people need to look at that more. So I
Well,
appreciate you saying that.
I mean, I like to say that, none of us are promised a long or a healthy life.
Right.
And, we need to do what we can with what we're given, but also sometimes go out there and try to figure things out.
Right.
Not everything's gonna land in your lap, and woo, problem solved.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I talk about that. I just made a post the other day too about, going through things in life, and you go through this lesson to learn, and then you don't learn. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I just went through something like this. And it's like, and I'm a big believer in God. And I'm like, well, God's just showing me again, like, you didn't get it the
Amen.
first time, Tammy. And then by the third time, he's about ready to knock me in the head. Like, hello, you should sit down and look at this. but it's true. We get lessons. I mean, nobody told us life was going to be easy. It's never been promised that way. And it's just, we're going to get through the struggles. It's just, how are you going to get through them? Are you going to lay down and be like, poor me? Or are you going to stand up and be like, what do I have to do to fix this problem that I have? What can I do? Can I call someone to help me out that's been through something like this? I mean, nowadays there's so much on YouTube and Google that you can self-help yourself. There's a lot out there of free stuff. But I just remind people that life's not easy. It's not, but we can get through it. So yeah.
Well, I mean that's like self-education is huge, and it's a way that I was able to like start the things that I've been doing now, and all of that's good things. But one of the things that I found that a lot of us as human beings do is I like to call it shelf education, where we'll go ahead, and we'll learn these things, but we'll kind of just put them away, on a shelf and let it catch dust, and it's like you took a course on this, or you learned about what you should do when you get angry, whether it's people that have gone through like rehab or whatever it might be. Sometimes people forget the things that they've learned, and we have to kind of sometimes dust those books off and be like, hey, wait, hold on, I've learned this lesson before, like you mentioned. Like, why am I going through this again if I already know what I need to do to get past this? So
yeah, I like what you said about that, because it's so true. Like, for a while there, I was just feeding myself with all this knowledge, but I wasn't doing anything. I was like, I could listen to everything all day long, but if I'm not doing anything, what good is that doing me? No
yeah,
good
the
at all. Right.
execution is what's
Right.
important.
And that happens a lot. So now, instead of doing it all day long, in the morning when I get up, like I said, I always do a gratitude and I say a prayer, and I always listen to some type of motivation, something positive in the morning, whether it's I'm listening to I don't know, Eric Thomas. Sometimes
Okay.
I get David Goggins in my life.
David
Sometimes
Goggins, yeah.
TD Jakes in my life. Sometimes I need a soft and cuddly person in my life. It just depends. But I have all those resources that I use in the morning. It doesn't matter. I'm going to listen to something in the morning to remind me,
Yeah, to motivate you.
motivated and,
That box of tools, like you mentioned.
exactly, the box of tools. And you said that too, we
Yeah,
get these things to use, but we put them up here on the shelf, like you said,
yeah,
instead of keeping them next to us in our
yeah.
toolbox
Ready to go on that tool
or
belt,
tool
even.
belt. Right.
Ready to
Yeah.
go.
Ready to
Hit the
go.
road
And
with
you
it.
be like, oh, well, when this happened to me before, I was able to, yes, I do like this. Yeah. So I love that. I love that a lot. So now what are you doing now in life?
So, I do quite a few things.
I
Some
know you
people like
do.
to label me as a serial entrepreneur. I don't
Okay.
really like the serial connotation. I
Right.
think serial means like it tends to mean like you're obsessive, like like serial killers and like stuff
Right.
like that. So I don't like the I don't like the serial connotation. But I like to think of myself as a diversified entrepreneur, or
I like that.
social entrepreneur, things of that nature. Because most of the things that I do are connected back to people. And the reason why is because, I like people as much as, sometimes people can annoy me. I very much like to talk to people. I talk to people every day. Um, I protect people. So one of my businesses is a business and finance consultant. What that means is that I help people with, better money habits specifically, but also like improving their credit, taxes. If it comes down to it and they want to start a business, I show them how they can, transform their personal and finances into the business side, and how they can, set up the business, whether they should do a sole prop, LLC, things of that nature. And if they want to kind of experience that transition from employee mindset, I guess you could say, to more of an entrepreneur mindset. So I actually wrote a book on the subject, which is called Learn, Drop the L, and Earn. And that's kind of encompasses most of the things that I do, as well as it is a guide for people self-help book kind of thing where it, helps them kind of develop that entrepreneurial mindset.
Awesome.
Aside from that, I own a security company here in Rhode Island and in Massachusetts. That's called Nightlife Security with a K.
Mhm.
That started because I saw a problem with the security world. Actually lost a friend to the nightlife, unfortunately. He was stabbed in a club, and it really just made me think that there was issues with like how security does things, at least here in Rhode Island and probably around the world. Um, and that then led to other things. The supermarket is another thing that I have in the Dominican Republic with my mother. She's running that now while I'm away. Um, and more recently, I'm going to be starting a tequila brand. Um,
Oh, awesome.
so yeah, so that tequila brand's called Privilege. And the idea behind that essentially is going to be um, that the bottles are designed by local artists. Providence is um is considered the creative capital. So there's a lot
Okay.
of artists here, RISD's here, and like, there's a lot of talent. But unfortunately, a lot of these artists don't get to, generate any revenue off things that they create.
Right.
So the idea that I have behind that is that essentially the artist will be able to, create a particular bottle that I would have a limited edition of
Oh,
for a year, and then that artist would generate revenue from that particular bottle.
wow.
And it would be attached to an NFT so that it would create almost like a royalty for this artist.
Mm. Yeah.
So essentially, what will happen is the NFT will be like a digital deed for the art for the bottle that's being sold. And if it's sold today for $50, the artist would say, let's use easy numbers, 10%. So they get $5.
Hmm.
Um, a year from now, if that bottle is sold as art, it doesn't have to have anything inside of it for
Right.
$100, then that artist would still get a piece of that pie, basically,
Mm.
and
Okay.
they would get $10 on the second sale. And if
Mm.
God forbid that artist were ever to die, um, their family would still see money from that legacy item, is essentially what I'm thinking it would be called. Um, where, if it's worth $1,000 after their death, their family would see 10% of that for life.
Mm. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. That's going to be great. I like that.
I think it's gonna be a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing like it as of right now, at least
Mm-hmm.
at the time of this recording. But it's something that isn't gonna be easy, but I think it's definitely gonna be worth
Yeah, definitely. I don't think there's a lot of things in life that are easy that are like worth it. You know what I mean?
it.
Like when
That's a
we
good
when we're
point.
in like you said, you're in the trenches,
Yeah,
every day. You're doing the do, and
yeah,
some people will sit back and be like, well, why is this person getting this and I'm not? Well, probably because you're not doing things to get that,
man.
and that's where it all comes to. And I just heard this statistic the other day and I had to
Mm,
Google it afterwards because I was talking to some guys at the golf course that I was bartending at, and he said something about, I said I have 112 episodes of my podcast. He's
mm,
like, oh my goodness, you are in the top 10% then. I'm like,
mm.
he's like, most podcasts don't make it, 20 is it, and then they're done. And
Wow,
I Googled it and it's true. I was like,
wow.
whoa, I'm like in the top 2%. Are you kidding me? I
There
have
you go.
113 today. You know
That's
what I mean?
amazing.
Because, and
Congratulations.
I thank you, but I think that showed me another thing is perseverance. Keep
Yes.
going. You know what I mean? Just because you only had 22 downloads this week, but last week you had 102 downloads. And then you get a message from somebody that says, hey, that story inspired me today, or that story helped me get out of bed today.
Yeah.
Or the person that shares their story says, thank you, I've never shared my story before.
Yeah.
So it's all those things that intertwine. And I was just like, when I heard that, I was like, man, that's pretty incredible to me to know that people quit that quick because they don't see the instant results that they want. And so you've been in the trenches, definitely doing the things. I wanted to ask you real quick about when your friend got stabbed. I don't mean to go back to that,
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
that was it recently.
I mean, it happened before I started the company. So
Right.
that happened in 2019, I think it
That's
was.
what I
No.
thought. That's what I meant by recently, like since I've known you, because I can remember
Mhm.
seeing some posts about that and stuff, and then watching you start your security company. So
Yeah,
yeah, sorry for the loss of your friend like
yeah,
that. It's that's a tough one for sure, and then
yeah. I
but
mean,
see
it was.
but here's the thing that I love about that, not of the friend part, but you took
No, I
that.
mean the consequences. Mm.
Right. You took that trauma and that what you saw needed something and you turned it into something positive,
Yeah,
and that's what I think a lot of people don't look at. Like when there's a tragedy or a death or something happens like that,
yeah,
we go to the end of the world, what am I going to do? Instead of standing up and saying this, I'm going to try to help other people. And I have a friend of mine that I interviewed her at my night of hope, and she
mm.
lost both of her daughters to overdoses.
Oh my goodness.
So she took that and she started a group called Not in Vain. And she
Mm.
started it for moms that have lost children to addiction. And
Yeah,
she started a small little group here in Toledo, just small. And unfortunately, it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But now
yeah.
she's across the whole country and even
Wow,
overseas, this nonprofit is. And
wow.
she took the death of her two daughters and said, I'm not going to let this just kill me. She's raising her grandkids now,
And
but
now
I'm
has
going to turn it
so
around
much
to help
reach.
somebody else. And
Yeah.
that's what we need to do with our tragedies. We make it through it, then we got to figure out the best way.
And I mean the name is very suiting. I mean, not in vain.
Yeah.
They didn't die in vain.
Right, right. And so it's just doing those things and helping people. I know we live in a world that's a little, I'll just say messed up right now. I'll just say that. But instead of being against each other, just we can all get together and we can be kind to one another and help
Yeah,
each other by taking a
exactly.
tragedy or something and or something that we know knowledge wise and sharing it. And I see you
Yeah.
do that. Your passion for all the things that you do is really incredible to watch. I love
Thank
seeing
you. I
it.
appreciate that.
I'm following you on TikTok now. I don't know if I'm following you or I see you, but I'm pretty sure I'm following you. But, and that's the thing. And I'm going to, of course, put your book in the comments and things like that for people to, look at. And this is why we do this, to help people to know that you can get through the things. So is there anything that you want to, oh, and you're going to the Dominican Republic in November, you said,
In
right?
November, yeah, yeah. So I'll be
How
there.
long will you be there for?
So I'm a bit of a snowbird now. Grateful
Oh,
to say.
nice.
Uh,
Good for
so
you.
so I'll be there till about June or July.
Oh, good for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
that's good because I'm here in Toledo right now and I was in Arizona in 21 and now last year was hard and this year already it's getting gloomy and I'm like, oh my gosh, here it goes. And then I got to talk myself out of being like sad because it's cloudy out, but it'll all be good.
I mean,
So
trust me, I'm an advocate. I love sweater weather. I love sweater
you
weather.
do?
I do. I love sweater weather, but I don't love snow. So you
Right.
like that moment when it starts to get too cold and you can't just wear a sweater. You got to throw a sweater on and a
Right.
jacket. No, not for
Yeah.
me. I don't think
Yeah.
people were created for to live in cold places.
Right.
Uh, it's just the only reason why we do is because some genius created clothing and
Right.
another one found fire. So,
That's it. That's the reasons.
yeah, so
I have to agree with that.
other than that, I think, we were meant to be in nice, warm places and have a good time and enjoy that beautiful sun
The sun.
and
Yeah.
and just flourish.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you 100% on all that. And I love the well, I've been to Punta Cana 3 times
Oh,
and
yes.
I've always loved it down there. So it's a
Yeah.
beautiful place. So
Punta Cana
is
is
there any
amazing.
last little tidbits or advice you'd like to give anybody before we wrap this up?
I mean, I just like to let people know, that you only fail if you die or you quit.
Mm, mm,
Yeah. So
it's true. I
keep
tell
keep
these
going.
people, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just mean like they just got to keep going. Like, it's
Yeah,
something
that's
that,
it.
if you die, obviously you can't keep going.
Right.
If you quit,
Yeah.
there's other things that you can do. And if you continue to try and persevere, then you can get through most things.
Yes, for sure. I just read probably about a year ago. how 409 got its name. Do you know how it got its name?
No.
Because they had 408 attempts, and the 409th attempt was why they named it that.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
insane. But I mean, it makes sense.
Right. Right. So, and people need to like look at those kind of things. Like
Yeah.
those, you look at Michael Jordan and
Yeah.
he's eighth grade, he couldn't even make the basketball team,
Hmm.
like these things that people go through, but they keep going and going and going until they get to their passion and what they want. It's all about what you're going to do with your life at the end of the day.
And some people just, they see the overnight success, but they don't see what happens sometimes before then either. Like that person was probably setting up for that. Yeah, they might have sold $1 million in product or and be a trillionaire now, like Jeff Bezos, but he started off, you know, like selling books out of his garage.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
And that's where I get like, I was just talking to my trainer today at the gym or yesterday about Sylvester Stallone. He didn't know that
oh yeah,
he didn't know that he was homeless and he didn't know that he wrote Rocky. And I
yeah.
was like, and that because people don't see that part because they don't talk
Hmm.
about that enough. And I think that needs to be shared more. I said to somebody the other day about Steve Harvey. I mean, he was homeless for how
Yeah.
many years and lived in his car,
And now look at him.
now look at him, right? Because he kept going. And when you talked about the overnight success and what people see and the joy and the happiness and all of that on social media, you guys, it's social media. That's what
Yeah,
I like people to
that's
know. Like, I know that you didn't wake up one day and here you were an entrepreneur and you got this business and you got your financial business and you're helping people with their credit. And then
yeah.
all of a sudden you got the security business and it just all fell on your lap. No,
No,
it takes work.
doesn't work that way.
That's why I have a love-hate relationship with social media. Like I love it because I love to express who I am. I love to share hope with people and let people know be yourself. But at the
Yeah,
same time, you see somebody over there that's, nobody, it's glamorized too much. We'll just say
yeah.
that. And then people get in a comparison stage.
It's like a trophy. It's like a trophy shelf.
Right.
A lot of people put all of their wins on there, but they don't put any of their losses.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. And the struggles that they went through to get there. And I think people need to know that more. They
Yeah.
need to know
It's a
that.
story and it means a lot and it helps people get through their own struggles.
And that's true. And I actually, so I don't know if you saw back in April, I competed in a bikini 50 and older bodybuilding competition.
There you go. I think I saw some pictures, but I
Yeah.
wasn't sure what was going on.
Yeah. But I didn't place. Okay. I didn't place. So
No,
now
okay.
I'm competing this Saturday. I almost said I'm supposed to compete this Saturday. I'm
All right.
competing this Saturday, and I've almost 3 times talked myself out of it because I don't
Oh,
feel like I'm in the shape that I should be yet. But if I don't go do it, I'm not trying,
yeah.
and I might not place again, but I know how hard I worked. And
Yeah.
to give that up because I'm like, oh, my belly's a little too puffy. I'm like, no, I'm just going to go ahead and do it again. But I could have stopped and just said, forget it, I'm done. But
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going until I place,
Yeah.
period. So the losses will be told, but I'm going to keep going till I place, whether it's
Hey,
50 or 60 years old, who knows? Because 60 is
hey,
around the corner a couple of
I'm
years.
not gonna stop you, and the only person that can stop you is you. So,
Exactly. That's it. I love that saying too.
but
The only
I'll be here to
stop
support
you
you
is you.
throughout the entire way. So make sure you keep posting about it. I'm gonna keep liking and commenting.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. So, well, I really appreciate you taking time out today and getting on here with me and sharing your story. I'm sure it'll inspire somebody out there that listens,
Yeah.
and that's what this is all about, you guys. Just
Yeah.
knowing that there's hope, knowing that no matter what you go through, you can get through it. I mean, even your mom's story is a story of hope, right?
Yeah,
I
it
mean, like
is.
you said, she moved, she tried to live there because she was afraid, which I don't
Yeah,
blame her, but
yeah,
making sure that her kids were still taken care of. And then, like you said, then she moved down there and got through the depression and now she's working. It's just all those struggles that we go through, but
yeah.
we can get to a strength no matter what. And so that's what this is about. And hopefully today you listen to this episode and it's the day that you take a deep breath and go, I can open my front door and walk outside today. Everything's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, and I think that we need to know that more. I've had a couple people in the last few weeks call me and they're on the verge of ending their life. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. This is just a storm you're going through right now. It will be okay. And after the conversations, like we talked to, have somebody to talk to, now they're in a better place because now they're thinking more clearly and realizing, yeah, that was a storm I was going through, and we all go through those. So I hope that our episode today with Carlos talking and knowing that you have some tools in your toolbox that you can use, and free social media, free YouTube, so much self-help out there. Don't be doing all the things, reading all the books, listen to all the audiobooks, and then put them up on that shelf, like you said. Use the tools that you have. Make it a tool belt, put it as an armor on you, whatever you got
There
to
you
do.
go.
So, yeah. So, well, I appreciate you getting on here, Carlos, and everybody. I hope that you have a fantastic day, night, whatever time it is that you're listening to this. And we will have more episodes soon. And I'll put the links to Carlos' books and his channels on here too, his social media. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Thanks.